AMH. How is things? How is everyone? Hey, Air Life. Yes, Tewas, or not Tewas, as some call them. You're clearly not in the opposition. I wonder, can I box around chat? Is that a thing? Background color, just black. Eh. Hey, Corrupted Zach. You guys can hear me, right? I can hear myself, but I don't know if you guys can hear me. It's always a question with YouTube. Sweet. Hey, Tracy Wong. So, how's everyone else doing? Did you guys have fun today? Do something exciting? I had to work. And then I came home and slept. It was a lot of fun, actually. Though, I will say, I'm gonna be stepping out in about 45 minutes ago, throw my laundry in the dryer, but that shouldn't take too long. It should only be about 15, 20 minutes. Probably actually about 5, but yeah. It's technically like 30 yards away. It's very far. Yeah. Are you guys excited to talk about character creation today? You know, making of a human. Well, at least the beginnings of the making of a class. If we decide to do classes, or we might decide to do something else, like, you know, kids start with origins, or jobs, or something like that. Could be completely different, who knows? Mm. Oh, I've heard about the last stage of Cross Rays. I've also heard about the last stage of Awakened Trailblazers. Yeah, did you want to fight 38 enemies? Though I'm waiting on that one or wing stage that's like, oh yeah, kill 50 enemies in 4 turns. Like what? When did that happen? Yeah, we'll get to Venus. We'll build it out. We'll decide what's going on with it. Because right now, the only thing we really know about Venus is there's prison colonies. We don't know what they do. They're just prison colonies and space Venice. Oh yeah, that. Sorry, that dance life thing's like way overpowered. It's really nice actually. Though I just wish the hit chance was a lot higher. But I guess if you put reflex into your characters, unlike me, it actually is overpowered. I don't do that though, because I'm a nerd. So we actually don't know anything about Mercury and IBO, which I always found that was weird to me. Because it's like, yeah, they have something on Venus, they have something on Mars, but Mercury, which has a bunch of materials and is basically a lava world, no one's been to. They just completely ignore it. So I have a really cool idea for Mercury that we'll get to eventually. Though we probably won't get it today, we'll probably eventually get to it in like week or two maybe. Once we actually get into that kind of stuff. Yeah, the fact that I'm using custom characters means my stats are pretty low, and I'm cheap, so and I keep getting rid of characters, so I don't want to actually invest in upgrading them. But I've thought about it. Like if I ever do decide to switch over to having all the custom made characters as the ship crews, and then having individual characters in the suits, I'll probably just boost everyone up to 700 or 657 or whatever that guide suggests, and then just letting them naturally max out their stats. Yeah. I am all about investing everything into either energy or attack. Energy lets you attack more, and attack means you have to attack less, which both work together really freaking well. Oh, the final boss of the game can. Oh, even Ivan Ivanov is the super boss. Good to know. The only true new type in the game. Then again, if you had a character who had one in every stat but a really good ability, I'd be cool with it. Because I have like 3 million money right now, and I literally just bought a ship, and I threw a bunch of away a bunch of money buying stuff I didn't need, and I still have 3 million monies. Yeah, I've been upgrading the VDAR, and I've also been upgrading the nuclear missile Mobius. And I really have to say, like, if you can get energy to a certain amount, like, you can just dance life the entire freaking map. It's insane. Okay, the 1,000 HP must really suck. Unless you threw on, like, a limiter and then the bonus armor. So it has, like, 10,000 HP and only 90 in stats. It'd still get bodied if you let it get hit, but if the pilot's good enough, it shouldn't matter. Oh, Ultra Carta's doing really good, actually. She has almost 500 command right now, and I'm eventually going to get her shooting and dodging stat up so the battleship can hit everyone it wants to and dodge every attack. It's about half the case right now. Like, legit don't get hit for anything. So the primary stats for a battleship are actually given from the captain, with I think it's something like a half or a quarter of all the sub people's skills being added to the captains for every role. So by maxing out your captain, you don't even need the extra people. Though you want a mechanic in there and a guest in there if you're going to do it that way, because the mechanic, if you don't have them in there, they don't heal. Or you're when you move a unit into the carrier, it doesn't heal. And if you don't have a guest, you don't get any of the bonus EXP. So having 999 with your captain while also having a guest and a mechanic is just as good as not or is just as good as having, the full thing full of people in 999. I don't know if they cap though. I haven't done the math that far yet. So yeah, you'd want to boost the gunner's shooting skill, but you also want to boost the captain's shooting skill. The captain's is the more direct one because every point you put in gets used, versus the gunners, which it's like every 2 or every 4 points gets used. But it's been 15 minutes, so you guys want to start? Or should we wait a little bit longer? I was a little bit late today. Oh, yeah, Dance Life, once you get around like 4 or 500 damage, you hit for about 2k, 20k. So, you absolutely murder people. It's great. So if you get something like, Lupus or, uh, Astaroth at full, or at about 500 damage each, like, you can one-shot almost everyone in the game. I mean, honestly, business stuff in Cyberpunk is the way you go as well. Because you only start dirt poor in the very beginning. Eventually, you start you set up like protection rackets or something like that. And eventually, start investing in businesses, and it becomes more of destroying your opponent corporations than it does actually like going on the ground and doing stuff. So you might eventually like go do something, but you're gonna do it backed by a bunch of tanks and a heavy machine gun versus like pulling a pistol out and walking the streets trying to find a job. That's kind of the fun thing about Cyberpunk is it becomes a completely separate game after about halfway through. Like the nomads and solos start being a little less useful, though solos are still really useful if you can max out combat sense. And then it starts becoming more important with the corps, the medias, and the police, because you can also be you can be an incredibly corrupt cop in it if you want as well, which is always fun. That's why former Gallahorn is here. Though the only problem with that is if you do play the corrupt cop, you have to have everyone else who's okay with that, or it becomes a weird game, or you end up fighting your own players, and it's not the best. And as far as developing the Dance Life Greys, you can only get it through one unit, the Aryan HUD Greys, which you get for like 80 units registered or something like that. You should already have it by now. It's the dark green one. Yeah, as far as this game goes, I do imagine eventually it'll be, you buying businesses or taking over businesses or running entire fleets, eventually just to fund your operations to either acquire all the Gundams, murder mobile armors, um, replace Gallahorn with your own thing. Like, it's entirely up to you. It could be really fun if that's what your group's into. Or you could just start playing like concurrent amount of lower level characters who, it's a really good thing when you capture a mobile suit and then after you capture the first one, you work through getting more and then you all die. So you get to start from zero again. That's fun too. Yeah, so that's one of the fun things about the game as well, is it's like, yeah, so you destroyed these grazes. Now Galahorn's after you, but if you want, you can drag them back home and rebuild the graze and use your own graves. It'll be a lot of fun. Except for those are illegal and don't do that. But you can if you want to. Theoretically, that could work. Uh, sticking a cockpit on the mobile armor, as long as you don't let the mobile armor's personality take you over through AV or something like that. You probably wouldn't be able to control the thing as naturally if you didn't use AV, but if you did use AV, it would be fun. Oh yeah, that would clearly drive you insane. As far as actual classes go, that's really the question. At least in my version of it, I was thinking of, instead of having actual classes, you have your origins marked out. So like you're either born in space, you're born on Mars, or you grew up on Venus in a rebel army, or you were part of Gallahorn for a while and for some reason you got thrown out. And each origin would give you a specific skill, something useful, but then something better than what everyone else had. And then from that specific skill, you'd have a selection of about 8 other skills, which we'd have to create as well. And then with those 8 skills, you'd get to put a certain amount of points, and then you'd also be able to put a X amount of points in other skills too. That's at least what I was thinking. I'm kind of against having classes just in general in these kind of games, because I don't like the idea that it's like, okay, so you chose to be a gunner, so you're just bad at everything but shooting. But then if you have your gunner who's also good at melee, then what's the point in having gunner? Best part about the tabletop game, you guys take down Hoshmal or, Seraphim, Tribdium, Gorum, one of the Galk, and then, you take it back to your base and you slowly rebuild it, not knowing that that's a horrible idea. You eventually, plug your best pilot into it, and slowly their brain starts to go wrong. They start seeing things. It's like, all right, Tim, you're the left leg. John, you're the right leg. You guys have to be in perfect sync or this is not gonna work. Good luck. I Aerowith, I guess you could roll that up into obligation. Just having a origin where that happened would be kind of pointless. It's like, yeah, you start with a Gundam, or you start with a mobile suit. You don't really get any late game benefit from that. I guess if you did it that way, you could start powerful. And that might be useful to some people. Though I probably wouldn't let you start with a Gundam unless other people would also have something as powerful, or would start with mobile suits, just because that would throw off the power dynamic a lot. Like one person would be very important in combat and everyone else wouldn't be. It'd be kind of an issue. I do really like that. It's like, yeah, you start out like you're just walking outside, you're like, such a beautiful day. And then an asteroid comes flying down, slams in front of you, and suddenly like Gallahorn rolls up, starts pulling out guns, saying you stole the suit that just got impaled on the ground in front of you. Like, well, where are you gonna go but inside the suit? Um, Black Heat Wave. I know somebody was mentioning like creation in, I want to say, Dark Heresy, where like you pick where you're from, you roll on a table, from where you roll on the table you get an additional thing, and then you roll like your flaws or something on the table, and eventually you build out like a backstory through that, which I mean could be interesting. Yes, if you somehow found the way to make AVE, you could get a bunch of people to turn in into like an army of Grey Zines, or even worse, like an army of mobile armors controlled by former people who may or may not have been the origins of the Calamity War and start Calamity War 2.0, Electric Boogaloo. It's all in the cards. That's the best part about a tabletop game. There is no one set solution, nor one goal in mind. Some people might have goals, but that's slightly different than what's actually going to happen. Like, why not start a robot army and start the second Calamity War? Bandai would never do that. They want to have mobile suit fights, not mobile armors versus mobile armors. And Page, you could start out with, what, the Bellaforus, maybe? All broken down, and you slowly have to pay money to buy parts, and it's like, oh yeah, you need $250,000 to repair this full thing. And you just did a job for $5,000. Congrats, you're 1/50th of the way there. That job only took you 6 months. Then again, that would end up probably turning into a multi-generational thing of rebuilding the mobile suit, or maybe you'd bring back broken mobile suits and start adding the parts to your Gundam to make something different, like a pseudo Gujin or something. Be kind of fun. So as far as stats goes, I hadn't really thought too much into it. Like, I had considered going with just Cyberpunk, the like body, dex, reflex, int, empathy. I couldn't really see a use for willpower. So he's actually starting off on this. Oh, it's that one. Nope, not those. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Starting with the stats, we'll just figure out what the baseline for it is. I should don't worry too much about how this looks so far. It'll look better in the future. And by that I mean I'll get around to it one day. I swears. So stat wise, do we want to go with something like, the common six, strength, dex, charisma, con slash endurance, intelligence, and wisdom? Yeah, I did. Or we could go like cyberpunk, which is body, reflex, dexterity, intelligence, empathy, will, movement allowance, and there's two more. Um, oh, I forgot about tech and I forgot luck. Oh, and cool. Cool is a dumb stat, but I kind of like it. Yeah, but hmm. Yeah, so I was thinking about it as like, how about we combine strength and endurance or something like that into basically body? It's just this is how. Yeah, my initial plan was to combine Cyberpunk and Mechton stats. But if you look into Mechton, it's actually a continuation of Cyberpunk and uses basically the same stats, except for I think there's like anime power or something like that. Some Chibiu thing. Yes, John, you could be an Eldar, but only if you make Mike be a Tau. So yeah, I was thinking like combining strength and constitution slash endurance into one stat just being body, basically how physically able you are. So it both controls how much you can run and also how much damage you can take. Which is also something we have to talk about a little later. Health system. Do we want to do Cyberpunk's you take damage, or do we want to have HP points, or how do we want to handle that? Ah, god damn it, he's a Tau nerd. Goddamn space elves, who may or may not steal people's genes. I mean, they don't steal khakis, but they steal genes. Yeah, so do we want to, like, um, do you strike through on Google Docs? Oh, lame. You have to go and not right click it. Oops, that's a straw poll. You don't care about that. That was for poll number 1 for IBO slash Gundam. Oh, it's under format. That's what it was. You have format and then text, then strike through, which is Alt Shift 5. Yeah, so reflex and dex. Dex is how well you do it. Reflex is how fast you do it. So reflex is for shooting while dex is for throwing. As weird as that is to some people, it's like you might be able to hit a target, but if it takes you 5 minutes to hit the target, you don't really have very fast reflexes. But if you can throw that thing, you just miss like the broadside of a barn. You have high reflexes but low dex. It's for mostly for shooting, dodging, and for working on very small or working on very stressful things quickly. Whereas like if you're cutting a bomb, it would technically be a dex roll, but if you just randomly grabbed one wire and cut it, it'd be a reflex roll. Yeah. Well, how I see health, at least, would be pilot health, and then mobile suit health. They'd be separate. At least, like it would be how do we want to do health for the person itself? Like in Cyberpunk, you got 40 damage blips. Once you got to 20 damage blips, which would be heavily wounded, half your most your physical stats would be halved, which is cruel. It's an interesting system, and I kind of like it. But I would my problem with Cyberpunk is the fastest you can heal is 4 per day. So unless you wanted to just be like, yeah, my character sleeps and hangs out for 2 weeks, you're basically continually fucked, and you're just slowly dying. And I hate that, but IBO has nanotech, which allows you to rebuild your body, so it might work. Yes, that is exactly it. How many iframes you get when you try to dodge? So John, when is that Dark Souls Let's Play coming? Well, stream anyway. You and Ryan agreed to it yesterday. You have to do it, or 2 days ago. But yeah. Should we keep wisdom or should we call it like will? They're basically the same thing, but I think will explains it a little bit better than wisdom does. Like literally it'd just be like, "Oh yeah, we're going to strike that one through and just add 2 L's." It also strikes it through. Yeah, there's in the original version of Cyberpunk, you were supposed to have you were supposed to play Cyberpunk in jobs. So, say you are going to raid an embassy from Colombia because they're funneling drugs. You don't want to destroy the drugs or stop the drug trade. You want to steal the drugs because it's Cyberpunk. That's just how it goes. So you play through this like you go raid a yacht, and then you go to the embassy, you deal with the embassy, and you just stop. And then next session when you pick up could be like 3 months later. So all the damage you took on the job doesn't really matter. Doing a long form game like in D&D using Cyberpunk does not work because of that. So I generally suggest like either if you don't play in jobs, make an easy way to heal. Like you go to the hospital and you heal 8 per day instead of 4 per day. But even then, that's super expensive. So depending on the DM, it just doesn't work. There's a Wyndham stat because Seed is the best series ever, and Neo Raninoke is not a bad character. I don't care what you say. He's totally not a clone of Mulaflaga. He is Mulaflaga in the flesh and blood who just happened to survive that encounter. It happened. I I do like. I don't like how bleak Cyberpunk is for being so close into the future. I guess it's different in 1980 when it came, or 1982 when it first came out. But that's what I do like about Shadowrun is it's like, yeah, literally the apocalypse happened and now magic's back. Oh, and the head of Amazon, yeah, he's actually a dragon. That's why he was so powerful. Is he's just been hoarding shit for like 60,000 years. It's fine. Don't worry about it. He's paying you to go make friends with that other dragon and steal his babies. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And the fact that you guys haven't all been playing or watching G Gundam constantly since the day you first saw it is what's wrong with the world. We need all that G Gundam constantly. That being said, though, so should we keep dexterity and add reflex, or should we just combine reflex into dexterity? Hey, Benedict Cumberbatch almost becoming president was awesome. Sadly, he's British, so he couldn't be. So some Americans assassinated him. But that's unimportant. When we found out he was secretly Smog, it was badass. Anyway, I like the setting for Gundam X. I kind of wish they would have built it out more, but they didn't. So, do we want to have luck as a stat? Oh, shoot. Give me 1 second. Master Asia is the best character. He's the only man who can punch away a Zaku-sized bullet with his bare hand. But you see, no, Eok had great luck. He just had low stats on everything else. That's how he survived so far. And thus, you turn around and use your luck to kill Eok before it even happens, just to stop a tragedy that you'll never know about because it never happens. Yeah, that also buries the question. In Mechton, Reflex was God, like just straight up, because Reflex affected all forms of combat, or at least giant robot fighting, which was important because 90% of your game was probably in a giant robot slash mecha or Mechton, whatever they called them in the series. So anyone who had low reflex was fucked. So if you use a system based on Mechton, you just throw reflex in, you throw all your points into reflex. That's why my theory was is like we would split up dex and reflex, and then maybe something, maybe have like some rolls would be dexterity, some would be reflex, maybe a body roll in there somewhere. See, the thing with having a stat that is agility is wouldn't that just fall under dexterity? Like it's how fast you are, but or how quickly you can move, I should say. It's not exactly how fast you are. It would kind of split itself between reflex and dexterity. Yeah, see, that's the Rumble Railway is the true IBO way to do it. While you guys are fighting the giant robot fight off in the corner, you drop about two squads of guys in the ship to just capture it. And then you go, well, you guys can come back now. If you do, we won't kill your boss. So, dexterity, reflex, agility, and, completely remove movement allowance. That was the plan against the turbines is, you take the ship while they're off fighting and you hold the ship hostage. Well, Kurt Angle doesn't matter unless you have some stairs and a table. Mostly the table, though. The stairs are just kind of fun. Oh yeah, in my IBO game, the players were dealing with some bandits, and their plan was instead of actually fighting them, they're just gonna get a couple sniper rifles, sneak out up onto the local hill, wait till they went out to camp at night, and just put bullets into three of them, so they only have one working mobile suit because they only have one pilot. And then you basically tell them that unless they want to die, they'll surrender. Then as soon as they get out, you shoot them in the face too. Yeah, if you really want to be that much of an asshole, I guess you can napalm civilians. But it's kind of a dick move. But there is no kill like overkill. So we can get rid of that one. We did kind of do that. So we can do that one because I don't think anyone said anything against intelligence. Um, should empathy be a skill? Empathy was useful in Cyberpunk because it was to determine how human you were after you would get augmentations. Because in Cyberpunk, you basically had to go cyber or cyber weave technically, but you had to get like fake hands, a chip implanted into your brain that would work as a radio, plugs in the side of your head if you were a techie so you can connect to machines, that kind of stuff, subdermal plating in your clothing, like all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I couldn't see a downside to having an intelligence stat. That's just the like go to. I guess we could have an intelligence stat and a tech stat, like Cyberpunk does. Like, this is how good you are with technology, and this is your intelligence. They complement each other, but they're not ideally linked. Because if you're smart, you're generally good with technology. That doesn't mean you can't be dumb and good with technology. As far as the whole augmentation thing goes, yep, we'll talk about it. Just not yet. Hey, Time Pony, if you want, you can come join my server. And you can go, talk about tabletop games and maybe eventually find a group to play tabletop games with that include giant robots. Could be a lot of fun. Yes. If you remember, I believe it was episode 4, Galileo gets physically sick when he sees that Mika has AV. Like he's sitting on the side of the car throwing up. And as far as we know, when you're not backed by mobile suits, if you have any form of augmentation, you aren't allowed on the Earth. Just flat out. You're banned from going down. And for the most part, most people won't interact with you if you have something like that. That's why AV was so good at alienating people is the only people who would interact with you after you got your AV implant was the rest of your squad. And thus you started protecting them like a family because everyone else hated you. True. Yeah, empathy would be kind of a late game and very, very small amounts of uses. So I figure if we get rid of that, and we just have, harsh penalties for taking the augmentations. Like augmentations are good, but then you also get like horrible, horrible penalties for them as well. Kind of having to balance either do you want to be this monster who's actually a monster, or do you want to be a normal person who's physically weak and incapable? Yeah, it would be you'd be capable to hide your AV until you got scanned. Then you have this giant metal disc on your back. Though, if you're anything like McGillis with the original AV, he had a small a small block on the back of his spine. I think it was on like his 23rd vertebrae or something like that. That just plugged into the back of the seat, kind of where your lumbar is. Um, yeah, we did do will, so we can strike that one out for now. Um, should movement allowance or how fast you can move on the ground be a thing? Yeah, you can hide an AV, but can you hide, if you're RJ and lose your hand, so you have a robot hand, or if you're Naughty the mechanic and you lose your legs, or you get an eye torn out and you get a robot eye that changes colors as like the light shines on it. So AV Type E is where you have a human brain implanted directly in the mobile suit slash mobile armor, whereas AV Original is the thing McGillis got, where it's the perfectly safe version of AV that can be implanted at any time. Okay, yeah, so penalties on for augmentations versus negative stats or anything. Well, there will probably be some negative stats as well, but instead of having to balance that with an empathy stat, I can see it. So, do we want to derive? Do we just want to derive movement from like reflex or agility or whatever we end up going with? Maybe parts of body as well. I guess we could derive like walking speed, running speed, and jumping speed, or no, speed, walking distance, running distance, and jumping distance from agility itself. I think that would work. Pothead, we're homebrewing a tabletop IBO game. At least we're getting down into the nitty gritty of stats right now. So should we just strike out movement for agility and just have it derived? Maybe. I mean, we could do it. 0. I was thinking of having something like a rep system, where depending on your actions, you have positive or negative reactions from certain factions and people and that kind of stuff. So it could totally be like you, for certain augments, you actually do lose like 5 reputation or something from for picking up AV or losing a leg and having to get it replaced or something like that. Sounds good. Agility for run walk and body for jump. Okay. So in Cyberpunk, there was a stat that was called cool. It was basically how well you could hold up under fire and how well you could look good doing something stupid. I like the use of it, but it's very much like a completely unnecessary stat because we have wisdom and we have will, or we have will and that kind of stuff. So cool really doesn't really help because cool and will are basically the same thing. But we could include that if you guys want. You know, how good you look while shooting poor defenseless orphans who may or may not have found a clue to a mobile armor. Hmm. So cool is also used to resist torture, which is interesting. But would we could just like label that under body or something like that? Maybe will, depending on what the kind of torture is, or hell, even charisma if you want to swing it that way. How well you can hide yourself while being in intense pain or being hurt. But we can take a step back from that if you guys want. And should we have a tech stat or technique or whatever you want to call it? A stat of how well you use technology. So maybe make it uncool to be cool. All right. So no on the cool. So far we have Dex, Reflex, Agility, Charisma, Intelligence, Body, and Will. I will throw Body at the top because it's technically the most important stat. Because if you don't have Body, you're basically dead. So the thing with making it a subset of intelligence is that if we make you could theoretically be a person who's not all that intelligent, but also good with technology. You don't have to be smart to be good with technology. You just have to realize that it works separately from what you normally think. It all has a pattern, which is also partly how you determine intelligence is how to understand patterns. But I like the idea of having the idiot savant character. Like you have 3 intelligence, but you have 10 in tech. So if you really need to, you can fix an entire car. You're just really not that smart. Like you see the door says pull and you start pushing it and wondering why it won't open. I guess we could turn it into a skill instead of a stat. Yeah, basically, I'm just gonna strap a bunch of hand grenades to my chest. This isn't gonna turn out badly or anything. Seems like most people want to make it a skill instead of a stat, which I guess works. So you can invest in technology or tech if you wanted to. Maybe make it part of a class or two, depending on what we have as classes. So we have what 7? Yeah, we have 7 skills right now. Should we? Well, we've already done agility actually. So if we have tech as a skill, then we'll have 8. And if we choose luck and have 9 as well, or have 9 total, or we don't choose luck and have 8 total, both of which are technically round numbers, so it works. Because if we have 3, then it's 3 columns of 3 versus 8, which then it's 4 columns of 2, or 2 columns of 4, depending on how you want to look at it. So overall, should we have luck a stat? Should we make there be a way for, just to unnaturally turn the tide in something? In Cyberpunk, luck would allow you to get a +1, depending on the level of luck you had. Would allow you to use that many points per session. So, say you had like an 8 in luck, you'd be able to put something up to a +8 or put 1 point into 8 separate skills, or skill checks anyway, for that session. So, like, say you were doing a strength feat and, like, trying to jump over a wall, but your strength feat isn't very high. Well, you can invest in, 8 luck, so it'd just be a straight +8 to whatever you rolled. So even if you rolled, like, a 2, you'd still get a 10. Okay, we can do luck. I think luck is useful, and I think it doesn't detract from anything. Because you can build a heavy luck build, but then if your character doesn't have high luck but is good at skills, it's still the same thing. It's actually more reliable to be good at skills and less lucky. That being said, though, should there be a penalty for actually like having high luck? Maybe it becomes higher or it becomes harder to learn skills because you've grown up being lucky, and instead of actually learning how to do stuff, it just kind of happens for you. I was thinking about something like that in my previous game. Like, every point in luck you get adds a +1 to the IP or intelligence, or I forget what IP actually stands for. It's something weird though, but it's basically the EXP you need for skills, but they didn't want to call it EXP because EXP was a thing. So like you had to get like 10 IP to get to level 1 of a skill. But every point you had in luck would mean you'd add a +1 to that. So if you had like 1 luck, you would have to get 11 IP to learn a skill versus 10. But now that we're done with those, since we're basically keeping these, oh yeah, improvement points, that's what it was. It was something weird. It was EXP for your skills, dang it. So we had walk, run. I was about to type in running, jump, health question mark. We made tech a stat, so that's not necessary. Anything else you can think of to derive from the stats we've already established? But we have a technology. Oh, we have a tech stat. So having a like something derived from intelligence that is technology would kind of be pointless. Okay. Because we can always work out the nitty gritty to these in a couple of days or at another time if you want. Yeah, we kind of have this done. It should be technically in progress, I guess. Ah, yeah. So we can always think about it later. Um, so do we want to move over on to deciding if we want classes, origins, jobs, or whatever? Or do we want to do something fun like talk about what benefits and what Molus's AV would give you? Maybe flesh out assets and debts. It's a good one. Aim. Oh, I guess that would be off dexterity. Or would we just have like aiming rolls just a flat dex roll? Or a modified dex roll, I should say. Instead of deriving how well you can aim. Okay. We can proceed on. If anyone has any ideas, I do have a suggestion doc, which is in the description. If anyone is interested, that you can throw stuff on if you want. I was using that when I was throwing ideas at people on the Discord. So if anyone wants to scroll down a little bit, you can take a look at that, and you should be allowed to edit. Everyone should be, so you can throw on whatever you want. So you guys want to talk about AV next, or do you want to go like do some lore discussions or something like that? Well, I guess technically this would be AV and other augments. Oh yeah, you're supposed to be able to edit the suggestion doc. And so people can throw stuff in. And then I'll occasionally, haunt your edits and make sure no one either jumps the line or deletes something or anything like that. All right, see you, Merrick. The rest of this will be up on a VOD, probably in about half hour to an hour, depending on when this is over. Yeah, so if anyone wants to, they can throw stuff on to these suggestions. I think next stream, depending on how it goes, we might, talk about a lot of this stuff before we start. Now that we got some of the basics of character building down, might need to do a bit more than what's here already before that becomes a thing, but who knows? Kind of weird. I have I have my mouse pointer on Streamlabs. I have it on my actual screen, and then I have the shadow of the one on my other screen. So I have three mice, and it's kind of confusing me, but it's fine. So, AV or Alanya Vianya, long vaginas, what people call augmenting your personal self. It was banned back in the Calamity War, or at least post Calamity War after the defeat of the mobile armors, because, well, any form of automation was actually banned at the time. You can't even have systems that work for themselves. You literally have to have operators for phones and, people to run communications between sites and that kind of stuff. They even keep a small crew on all the Ariadne nets, which they have hundreds of thousands of them in space. So they keep 1 to 3 people on them to maintain it instead of having a robot that does it for them. Yeah, so Theoretically, if you wore gloves, you could cover over the fact that you have robot hands, assuming you have more than four fingers. Which I'm not sure how no one figured that out with RJ that he only had four fingers, but he only has four fingers. Um, though stuff like robotic legs, like the mechanic from Tekadon had Naughty, be kind of more difficult to hide that kind of stuff because what are you gonna do? Put on boots? Like your feet are much bigger than the rest of your body. It's kind of obvious. Though his legs are kind of a little like twiddly. It's really funny actually. Yeah. Like they're all cushioned and everything. They look kind of like mobile suit legs. That's the thing that always surprised me. Um, as far as actual AV goes, the most you can have before permanently crippling yourself would be the three spikes or whatever you prongs, whatever you want to call them, that Mika had. He went as far as possible before he was told to stop. The only way you can get more powerful than that would be like AVE or even the Origin AV. So how I was thinking about it would be like there'd be separate levels of AV. So it'd be like level one would be one prong on the neck, like +3 to reflex, -2 to con. This was back before body was a thing. Uh, two prongs being +4 to reflex, but -3 con. And then three prong being uh +6 to reflex with only -3 con. Whoops. Or no, it's -4 con. That's what originally I had the idea of. And then level 4 would be AVE, which AVE is literally just a +6 to reflex. There's literally no downside except for the fact that your friend's head's in the jar. Because remember, the thing with Ein was Ein fully believed in what he was doing. Even his brain kept that belief. So if Gallia would have went against something that Ein believed in, AVE wouldn't have worked for him. It would actually have stopped him dead in his tracks and probably done the opposite of what he wanted to. So you technically have to balance your relationship and your goals with what this brain had thought about the time it died. Though that's more of an RP effect than an actual like in-game statistic, so maybe there will be some sort of side effect. Tour goals. And then level 5 being the Origin AV, which was the original one, similar to the one McGillis used. That is the perfected version instead of the 60% or so of the one that they use on Mars and in Jupiter. Where instead of, you know, crippling children if it fails or creating massive welts and deforming the body, it works perfectly fine with everyone. You can even install it on adults. The only downside is it's basically banned everywhere and no one has plans for it. The only way you'd be able to get it would be like raiding Galahorn. Yeah, I think that's what they were pointing out with the beginning of AVE is you're putting the brain in the jar and then connecting it to the mobile suit. And then from there, the mobile suit, like the personality of the brain in the jar, kind of controls the mobile suit, and you slowly start developing from AVE into the mobile armors and starting the second Calamity War. Yes, IBO is Iron Blooded Orphans, or technically, this would be a role playing game set in the Calamity era. We're just spitballing ideas right now. I'll probably go in afterwards and kind of correct some stuff, make it look all pretty, maybe talk to some other people on my Discord and get them to help out. Yeah, the origin version of AV would be like the absolute goal of a campaign. Like you would have to go and either build it yourself, which you would have to have backing from, one of the seven stars of Galahorn, or go and steal it from the main base of Galahorn, like buried deep in their supply room or something. Yeah, Ramo, you'll feel like that for a couple of days. You'll get over it though. It's just the flu. And Pothead, this is a tabletop game that I'm designing for Iron Blooded Orphans, or IBO. Like this would be a game you would play on a table with your friends, kind of combined make believe. Yeah, you're only on day one. It'll get better by day three, and by the end of the first week, you'll be feeling loads better than you were this week. And then next week, you'll feel better than ever. Like, you get so clear headed and fluffy. It's great. Then again, you'll probably still be hungry when you get all clear headed. Because, yeah. So, should AV just, like, give you a +8? Or AV Origin just give you a +8 for reflex or something like that? Yes, like D&D, but with mobile suits. Tons and tons of giant robots. Well, very selective giant robots because this is IBO, and a lot of cars with guns to try to kill giant robots and then get killed. Yeah, I'm just slowly streaming me building the system. Yep. It's kind of hard to get past AV Origin, plus, finding it's kind of difficult. Either you're going to have to get backing from the seven stars and actually work on researching it, or you're going to have to steal it from so deep into the past that you might uncover mobile armors are defending the property or the like blueprints or data about it. Make it really powerful. Yeah, how I'm viewing AVE and AV Origin would be like it's not something you usually come across. Like it's something you have to have building up for a long time to get to. Like you're not just gonna find it in a hill somewhere. Like it's end campaign stuff. Like it removes all of the penalties you get from AV. Like you even have the normal AV removed and AV Origin implanted into you. It fixes your spine. You can finally walk straight after like 3 decades. You have to learn how to walk again. That's how I was thinking AV itself would go. The real question is do we want to have like levels or anything like that, or should we just have flat bonuses for like getting an arm replaced with AV, or getting or not AV with robot arms, or having your legs chopped off and replacing them with robot legs? Maybe you lose an eye or two and they pop it out and you get some like black market robot eye. Maybe at some point we'll do a UC version, but not now. I want to finish up this one before we start working on something else. There are a couple of versions of it out there for UC that you can look up. I know a lot of people end up working on it. I don't know if any of them really finished, though. I know somebody went through and started translating Gundam Senki, which was an actual official Gundam property, but they stopped about halfway through because formatting a spreadsheet was hard. I uh I remembered about Velko. He's in there. But yeah, what I was thinking about with the brain chip that Volko has be like +3 int, but you if you get shot in the head, you end up taking more damage or something, or any damage to your head is actually like tripled instead of doubled. Uh, if you read the Japanese, it could be translated to Volko. It's just Crossrays that does Volvo. Um, mm, all right. I think I need to go out and do something real quick. So I think I'm gonna cut off the stream here. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, you should like. If you didn't, you should dislike. We'll be back probably next Monday or maybe later in the week if I get some time. To do some more of this. Maybe we'll do a lore stream then. Could be kind of fun. I don't know. But we'll start working on mechanics again probably next Monday. I'd like to like once we finish up AV, maybe like hmm, maybe actually start working on classes. I think I'll do some work in between this and the next stream and kind of like explain out what I want classes to be, and then we can talk about it from there. I think that might work a little bit better than how I was doing it today. So I'll see all you guys later. Bye.